Hello, MechWarrior fans! This is Duncan Fisher. Today is the dawn of an exciting new league. A trial by fire, a proverbial bloodbath of lasers and autocannons, the likes of which you have never seen. Born from the twisted mind of the Dragon's own Hohiro Kurita, this new league will pit the finest MechWarrior units throughout the Inner Sphere against each other via intense skirmish-based combat. If you thought 1 vs 1s and 2 vs 2s was hardcore, just wait, because the Martial Olympiad is reborn.
Hey Mech fans, it's Cousin Indigo here, and it's the 26th of March here in New Zealand, and we are in the 4th week of the Martial Olympiad Reborn, the first tournament being brought to you by the new player-run competitive league, MWO Comp. And we're around halfway through the tournament now, and teams are really starting to settle into their work. We had some amazing matches this round, quite a lot of 2-3 games, with the occasional 5-0 stomp thrown in there. So let's start by looking at the results so far. We had a game between Clan Widowmaker and Friends and RJF Irie, and this was an excellent win, 2-3 to RJF Irie. A pretty good showing by Clan Widowmaker to take this down to a 5th and deciding drop against RJF, who are seeded much higher than them on roster strength. So a really good showing, but again RJF Irie did get up in that one, in that EU Div B battle. Now from one EU Div B battle to another, I Hate My Team played 31st Hussar. Again, another 2-3 match, and this time a very strong showing by 31st Hussar, who had this one within the first 3 drops, again against a higher ranked team on roster strength. So an excellent win for 31st Hussar, and that gets them off the mark. I Hate My Team had come in undefeated at that time, so a really good win there. We go to NA Div B, where Potato Killers played the Answer. This was a 5-0 win to Potato Killers, who are looking pretty strong in that division. The Answer did play pretty well, but they missed, I think, a few key opportunities to really turn some of those drops to their advantage. And if you did watch this one, it was streamed, and Ash and Kraz did talk about some key moments that the Answer just didn't take advantage of. So that will come with time, and Potato Killers were good enough to take advantage of their opportunities, and so they did get a very healthy win there. Cameron Highlanders Claymore went up against Bears Brawlers, and this was actually a round 2 game, and it was a pretty dominant display by Cameron's Highlanders, and yeah, they're looking like a strength in that division. They won this one 5-0 in that NA Div C battle, so they are looking pretty good, and am certainly looking forward to their matchup with Dropship 4. Now EMP played MS Crab People, and this was the crossover match, NA Div A and NA Div B, and wow, this was, if not the match of the round, it was pretty close. So when you see that score, 5-0, it is so misleading. This game was absolutely fantastic, and go and watch it, because MS were outstanding. They pushed EMP to their limits more than any other Div B team has pushed a Div A team. In particular, that drop on Caustic, I think it was the 3rd drop maybe. But they really, really did show their quality, the strats, even the pilot skill. You know, this is a team that had played Div C last year, so to represent in Div B against a powerhouse in EMP was really, really good. So very, very close there. Crab People almost took some drops, and they, you know, it was so much closer than that scoreline would have led on. An NA Div B battle between Death From Above and Smoke Adders. Another excellent match here, and a pretty strong showing by Smoke Adders, who had this match won in the first 3 drops. So it did end up 2-3, and DFA did do well to come back. But Smoke Adders very, very strong in the brawl. And they really showed that on Tourmaline, and then in the Caustic drops as well. But DFA did come back, and they showed their quality in regards to trade. But a very, very good win here from Smoke Adders against a team that's higher ranked on roster strength, and higher ranked in that division. So good for Smoke Adders to get off the mark there. We then had another NA Div B battle, this time between my unit, Clan Crossfire, and White Knight Legion. And yeah, a really good display by White Knight Legion. Clan Crossfire were never really in this match, to be honest. We did try and meme just a little bit with a Loom strat in the very first drop with Tourmaline, but unfortunately that one didn't play out. There was a bit of discussion, I guess, around how hit and miss looms are. They are going through a bit of a period of buffs and nerfs and counters, but obviously to make them work in comp, it is pretty situational, and White Knight Legion really did just push through and win pretty handily in all of these drops. The closest was drop 4, and Clan Crossfire lost that one on caps, but won it on kills. But yeah, an impressive display by White Knight Legion, who continue to be a real powerhouse in that division. They are now 3-0 and sets up a tantalizing battle in round 4 with MS Crab People. Now, 2-8 Black Watch played Black Omen in an NA Div A battle, and this one went to Black Watch 3-2. Very, very close game at the end, and a very, very good display by Black Watch. Do go back and watch this one as well, because if you want to see high level play, if you want to see very, very good pilots, again, an excellent demonstration in this game. And Blackwatch really did play some very good strats. This was an excellent back and forth battle. Blackwatch brought out some looms as well and some ATMs, and yeah, they showed, I guess, that some pilot skill and strategy is really needed to make them work. And yeah, a very good game and a very good win to Blackwatch. Black Omen are ranked far higher on roster strength, but that old adage about a team of champions not being as good as a champion team, and Blackwatch really did show their mettle in this win. Another Div 8 battle, this time EU, and another very, very good game between Phoenix Legion and Russian Jade Falcon. And Phoenix Legion won this one 3-2. Very, very good strat win, I think, here for Phoenix Legion, particularly on Tourmaline. They really just put themselves out there and played almost a pure cap strat on Tourmaline, and they won it. And they basically gave away getting kills, acknowledged that they would get killed. Very, very clever, very, very good example of how a strat can win. So yeah, two very close teams, and it showed, and again, a good win for PHL in that division. 2-8 Death from Below and Aces Wild Black Aces played an NA Div D game, and this will be the feature game that I'll talk about, so we'll discuss that a little bit further on. Majestic 12 and Furia went at it, and this was probably the upset of the week here. A very big win for Furia, who took down Majestic 12 in a 3-2 decision. Now, Majestic 12 were looking unstoppable, and even in this game, Majestic 12 ended up with more kills overall, but Furia showed that strats can win, and yeah, they really, really did well to take this away and potentially throw a little bit of a cat amongst the pigeons in this division by getting that win over Majestic. So the EU Div B is turning out to be a bit of a mystery in regards to predicting those wins in that division. So yeah, long may that continue. There's a very, very big difference in roster strength between Furia and Majestic 12, so that's a very, very good win there. Blackthorn Dragoons had a match against Cameron's Highlanders Claymore, and this was a seesaw battle, another 3-2 decision in this NA Div C, this time to Blackthorn Dragoons, which is a very, very, very good win. Came down to a 5th drop on Viridian, and that again puts some interest into NA Div C. A few teams there that are really showing strength, and it will be interesting to see what round 4 looks like for that one. So those are the matches from round 3, and let's talk a little bit about some of the takeaways. We saw Tourmaline and Caustic in the first 1, 2, and 3 rounds, and Caustic was a lot, I guess, what you would expect. It was either crazy brawl or brawl with a bit of Overwatch thrown in there. Caustic does give you those opportunities to take those hills or put yourself on those hills overlooking the caldera. Tourmaline's a map, I think, that you can employ some different strategies to win. There's a real opportunity with the size of the map to employ a cap strat, and we did see that. I've talked about PHL and what they did against Russian Jade Falcon, but by and large, we did see long-range Dakka and long-range energy as we had expected, with the occasional sneaky cap strat thrown in there. So it was about what we would expect. And of course, Rubelite, Alpine and River City were what we saw most often in the map ban phase, though Terra Firma snuck in there, and I mentioned that we did see Viridian as well. So those maps did play quite similarly to other rounds, with the cap and control and the long range trade primarily, although we did see River City more often in this round, so it'd be interesting to see whether we continue to see River City getting picked up more and more. So there was more diversity in the mechs selected this round than we have seen in the previous 2 rounds. There were 60 different variants that accounted for 75% of all the mechs that were taken. Now the Mad Cat and the Vulcan are certainly the most popular mechs overall, and in fact across the game and the tournament thus far. And just 10 mech variants have accounted for 30% of all the mechs taken in all the matches. The Assassin 21 and the Assassin 23 are both in that top 10, so effectively that makes the Assassin the most taken mech, but of course the Mad Cat 2B is, I guess, the most meta that we've seen, and that's been taken out very, very frequently. So it'll be interesting with World Champs if they stick with, say, a more regular format, to see whether we see those same mechs remain as meta through to the World Champs, and whether a competition like this gives the opportunity to practice those strats and those mechs that we would see in World Champs. Now, as I mentioned, strat-wise, it was pretty much what we expected from these maps, with Tourmaline centering often a lot on that Clan Smoke Jaguar Hill and firing down onto the stage there, and Lights getting around and trying to cap and trades really before the cap decisions are made and cap pressure maybe comes into account. Caustic was one of the most fun rounds this time round, and as mentioned, we did see some teams take those control points, those high points, and fire down. But more than any other maps that we've seen thus far, Caustic just descended into these crazy brawls quite often. And I think what set winning teams apart from losing teams was just really that ability to focus fire, and probably more importantly to time their push and time their intervention. So Caustic really did come down to that team cohesion, that team coordination, and teams would often run through other teams because that focus fire and that timing makes such a big difference. And no team demonstrated this better, I think, than Crab People on those Caustic drops, because they really pushed EMP and forced them into positions where they needed to react. And obviously it speaks to how good EMP are, that they were still able to get the wins on those maps. But MS did a fantastic job of timing their pushes and their interventions on Caustic. The map ban phases were a little bit more varied, as we mentioned, but they are kind of settling pretty quickly into a groove of primarily cap and control trade positions, established trade positions on Alpine, on Rubelite, on River City. So it will be interesting to see whether Terra and Viridian do feature more as we move forward, but expect teams, I guess, to stick to what they know. Average damage and match score was slightly higher in round 3 compared to the other rounds, though it was still pretty close, and close enough really to see that it's pretty consistent. And again, that supports this idea of player skill, player performance driving these numbers more than maps or strats ultimately. We did see a big jump in just one metric in round 3, and that was team damage. And the average team damage per match was actually 100 more than last week, so that's like a 20% increase. So probably due to Caustic, probably down to that crazy confined and chaotic brawl that you get on Caustic. Some teams certainly did bomb the hell out of each other with strikes on that map. Now, we have had 3 rounds so far, so I thought I'd take just a quick look at our top performing teams at the moment, and it's no surprise that our top performing team by the numbers is Aeon. They've had an average match score of almost 270 per pilot per match and 395 damage. They also have the highest rate of components destroyed, so that's 2.8 per player per match, and they have a kill rate of 88%. So that represents the rate of the opposition's mech that they kill, that they get through. So if if their kill rate was 100%, that means they're killing all mechs every match. Instead, they're coming close to that at 88%. Now, Diamond Shark Alpha Galaxy Command Cluster are next in second, and they have an average match score of 265 and damage of 345 per match per pilot, which is very, very impressive. This is an NA Div C team. They average 2.6 components per pilot per match, and their kill rate is 84%. So very, very good. They are 1-1, so they've had a win and a loss, and to play that well is a credit to their team. And yeah, they're 16th seeded overall in regards to their roster strength. Now, staying in NA Div C is the third best team thus far, which is Dropship 4. They're averaging a match score of 263 and damage of 375 per pilot per match, 2.8 components, and their kill rate is an insane 95%. So that is very, very impressive. Now, given that each of these teams have actually only played 2 games thus far, so it'll be, it could come down to just the small sample size, but we'll track this as we get through the rounds, and we'll see whether those teams stay where they are, but impressive performance thus far. On to the best pilots in round 3, and I'm just going to highlight 3 this time, given that we've done the teams as well. So the first is Leon de Flamand, forgive me for my pronunciation there, of Clan Widowmaker and Friends. Now, Leon averaged 350 match score and 540 damage across 4 rounds in round 3, which is pretty outstanding. Also in EU Div B, we had Taco Rod Warrior from Majestic 12, who was extremely impressive across the 3 rounds Taco played. Averaged 397 match score and 644 damage. Very, very impressive. But my pilot of the round this round was Way Too Sexy from Potato Killers, who was actually way too awesome this round with an average match score of 364 and average damage of 601 across the 5 drops. That included 5 kills, and in 2 drops, in an Annihilator and a Madcap B, Way Too Sexy got over 1600 damage across those 2 drops. So that is very, very impressive. Just a note, actually, that of the top 12 pilots, based on the stats in round 3, 8 of them were EU pilots. So the EU region on fire this round. Right, we go to the standings now, and in EU Div A, Eon and First Jag continue to be up the top there. First Jag is actually just edging Eon out on points at the moment, but both of those teams are 2 wins from 2. Phoenix Legion and Russian Jade Falcon bring up 3rd and 4th there, with PHL getting that victory over Russian Jade. In EU Div B, this highly competitive division, Majestic 12 are still up the top there despite that loss. In second is I Hate My Team, and then RJF Irie and Furia. Now we've got a bit of a logjam. All of those teams now have 2 wins and 1 loss. 31st Hussar and Clan Widowmaker and Friends bring up 5th and 6th, but as mentioned, the spread in that division is actually really, really small when we look at the points tally there, so I can't wait to see how that one pans out this week. To the smallest division now, NA Div A and EMP are sitting atop the standings here. They've got 3 wins from 3. And then Black Omen and 228 are battling it out for 2nd and 3rd. It is only a points differential there that is separating the 2 of them there. Both have 2 wins and 1 loss. So that does set up the match between Blackwatch and EMP as being pretty crucial in that division. To the biggest division in NA Div B, and as mentioned, White Knight Legion are sitting atop the rankings here. They are undefeated, 3 wins from 3, followed by Potato Killers and MS Crab People, who both have 2 wins from the 3 games that they have played. Clan Crossfire, Death from Above, The Answer, and Smoke Adders are in roughly the bottom half of that division. And Death from Above does have a win, so they're kind of topping that bottom half there. But very, very impressive. And yeah, we are seeing a little bit of a separation, I guess, in that division with a few teams that are setting themselves above there. So very interesting to see what happens in the next few rounds in that division. NA Div C, now this division is suffering a little bit from games being rescheduled, so there is a lot of games there still to be played. Cameron's Highlanders Claymores sit atop that with BTT Blackthorns Dragoons. Both of those teams have played 3 and won 2. Dropship 4 is coming in third because they've only played 2, even though they've got 2 wins. Diamond Shark Command Cluster then in 4th. Aces Wild and Bears Brawlers in 5th and 6th. But those top 4 teams, very, very close. And yeah, it will be very interesting to see how this division plays out as those teams begin to play each other and what kind of separation we get there. Last of all, we've got NA Division D, and Aces Wild Black Aces are looking very good at the top of this one, followed closely from Death from Below. We're going to talk about their match very, very shortly, but both of those teams looking very good. A few teams that haven't played all of their matches, much like in Div C, so 79th Raptor Talon Cluster, Smoke Eaters 505th, Diamond Shark 39th Strike Cluster, and Cameron's Highlanders Sons of Thunder. All of those teams are likely to play those catch-up matches over the next few weeks, so we should see that division start to shake out and see whether Black Aces and Death from Below remain the powerhouses in that division. Right, on to the featured game, and as mentioned, we're going to take a bit of a close look at a very influential game in NA Div D between 228th Death from Below and Aces Wild Black Aces. Now, both of the teams came into the match undefeated, so it was going to be a humdinger, and it did turn out to be. And this was cast by System Belmont and Violent Blue, so do go back and check this one out if you do have time. I had already hyped this game up as pretty crucial in this division, and Aces Wild did end up victorious, but it was a real set too between two strong teams in that division. I think if both teams watched this one back, they could probably easily identify a couple of key mistakes that they made in the rounds that they lost, and would be probably disappointed where they made those obvious strategic errors, particularly in positioning and particularly in timing. So this was very much a match where often one team would hand the other team the advantage. So again, if they were going back and looking at it, I think that they could very quickly see where they had done that, and they could correct those problems in future drops. So it should be a really good learning experience for both of these teams. Aces Wild, as I mentioned, were victorious, and they won this 3-2. On roster strength, they are very, very close. So again, I think the deciding factor for Aces Wild in this one was just around those tactical errors and ultimately who made less of them. So drop 1 was on Tourmaline, and Aces Wild won this one on caps 750 to 487. Both teams brought long-range trade with a mix of kind of Dakar and energy with PPCs. Aces Wild traded from that Clan Smoke Jaguar Hill that everyone knows of, very, very near their spawn, and they got an almost instant win with an insane headshot on a direwolf. So right from the get-go, Death from Below were on the back foot, and they lost a 100-tonner in a very, very short amount of time. I mean, the direwolf had barely peaked and got hit by an amazing shot there. And that did scare the other Death from Below assaults back a little bit. And then they kind of came off that corner, that D5 corner that you would trade from normally. And that kind of set Aces Wild on the front foot right from the get-go. 228 did push out a little bit from there, and they did lose another 2 assaults, lost those trades very, very quickly. Aces Wild then moved forward around that kind of Stargate area and established map control pretty quickly. So they owned the map and were able to cap. They moved forward and just basically pushed 228 back, ever backwards towards Sigma. Now, 228 were left with a few fast movers after their assaults had kind of been run through pretty quickly, but the match was lost already. It was almost lost as quickly as that direwolf went down with the headshots, and Aces Wild did end up winning this one pretty handily. Ultimately, this was 7 kills to 1, and a dominant display by Aces Wild. Jalek and Kaldabeski were the standouts for this one for Aces Wild, and they tallied 800 and 700 damage respectively in their assaults. So it was certainly the assault pilots that won this one for Aces Wild, and as I said, it was a good start. Drop 2 was to Caustic Valley, and 2 to 8th came back, and they won this one 8-5. So Aces Wild brought Brawl, and they pushed pretty hard initially into 2 to 8th, who had faster Brawl than Aces Wild. It kind of divided into 2 battles, with each of the teams almost overcommitting on their right and almost separating out each of their right flanks. But very quickly the teams turned in, and it just turned into that classic caustic brawl. And ultimately, I think this one largely came down to focus fire and pilot skill, because there was a ton of tiny mini battles that developed from the chaos, and 2 to 8 kind of came out of the sulfur cloud and the chaos much better with the win. I mean, looking back, I think Aces Wild would say that they were probably too aggressive in this one. They got a little bit strung out. They sent their right flank out a little bit further than 2 to 8, so it did mean that 2 to 8 were able to engage with more of their mechs on Aces Wild mechs quicker, and in the end I think those armor percentages counted, the focus fire counted, and Aces Wild kind of got worn down. They also didn't help themselves by doing 200 team damage, so they really made a tactical error with their strikes and wore themselves down, which I'm sure helped 2 to 8 to get the win there. Now, Black 6 was outstanding in a losing course for Aces Wild with 700 damage, but really it was Chortles, Tofurky, Zenthlock, and Whiskey Tango Fox that did bring this one home for 2 to 8. They had a pretty even spread of damage across those 4 pilots, and they were really big in this one. We ran that one back, and on Caustic this time, Aces Wild brought Fast Brawl, and 2 to 8 had a similar Fast Brawl. Both teams pretty heavy with missiles, either SRMs or MRMs. And again, both teams just kind of really quickly got in there and crashed into each other. Although this time it was probably 2 to 8 that pushed a little bit harder, and they had a bit of a split push. And it did, again, descend into this kind of chaotic melee with a ton of mini battles, and it was really rare for kind of more than 2 mechs to ever be shooting at 1 mech, so the focus fire was a little bit all over the show. But Aces Wild did come out on top, and I think that was because they probably had the slightly better deck. Now that's deck, D-E-C-K, for anyone that struggles with my Kiwi accent. They had the slightly better deck with assassins and linebackers, and the assassins and the linebackers really kind of showed the strength of their mobility and their hitboxes compared to 2 to 8, who had griffins, which were once pretty good, but against the assassins and the linebackers, it was just probably not enough. And the ECM was just a little bit irrelevant on this map with no lock-ons and, with the intention to kind of come to the middle and throw down. Now, TX Ace and Alex 545 were powerhouses in this one. Particularly TX Ace in his assassin. And there was plenty of team damage again, and Aces Wild almost made it hard for themselves with another 200 team damage, which was crazy. But Death from Below themselves did 100 team damage to themselves. So the message there, strikes OP, PGI, please nerf. So a good win for Aces Wild, 8-5 on that one, almost a mirror basically of what we had seen in Drop 2, but with Aces Wild coming out on top. We went into the map bands, and teams selected River City. Now, 2 to 8 were in Team 2, and they kind of immediately split their forces. They had 3 of their lights head to the upper city. Those were Wolfhounds, and they took the bulk of their tonnage kind of down the G line to push from Sigma to Kappa. And whilst this was happening, Aces Wild took up the traditional position up in Spaceport, and they sent their fast movers out, got Theta, and so they had that early 3 cap. 2 to 8's Wolfpack did get some intel, and they had stayed down low in the water, kind of under the bridge there, just as you go into Spaceport, because they had crossed over. But Aces Wild must have spotted them, and they sent down 4 mechs. They sent down a contingent to engage with the Wolfhounds, whilst the the other part of 228's team was still coming up through the lower city. So this caused immediate problems for 228. They lost a Wolfhound. They had to bail. The Wolfhounds ran back through the water to try and join up with the rest of the tonnage. But in reality, it meant that 228 were now trying to push up on Aces Wild in Spaceport, and they simply had better positions, they had better firing, they had better focus fire, and Death from Below were already down their lights effectively. Death from Below, I guess, made a little bit of a tactical error with the deck that they'd brought. I mean, they were more set up for mid-range trade. They'd brought 3 Marauder 2Cs, a Quick Draw, and a Dragon, and they had tried to bring through that tonnage through unseen through the lower city. And whilst it may have worked if they'd got the element of surprise, if they'd been able to kind of pincer them and bring the tonnage up and engage, and then the Wolfhounds come in from behind, but the Wolfhounds got spotted, so it wasn't the best strat, and it kind of handed Aces Wild the win because, you know, they were able to just stay where they were, and, you know, it was drop 4, and that gave Aces Wild their third win and take the match. A very strong performance by Chorus in a Mad Cat B. He managed 800 damage and 2 kills in this one. So this one didn't last for too long. That drop got over and done with pretty quickly. So to drop 5, the game was won at this point, but 228 did get the win here. It was mostly pride, of course, that they were fighting for. And this time they brought kind of a mid-range trade deck with a lot of Mad Cat Bs. Aces Wild brought, I guess, a little bit more of a kitchen sink deck here. They had kind of some Brawl, some long range, some Overwatch, some mid-range. It was kind of a little bit all over the show. And the match did start pretty slowly. It was a bit of a cap battle between each of the team's lights. Death from Below got Theta, and then Aces Wild tried to nab Kappa from them from that side, but they were kind of quickly pushed off. Aces Wild then decided that they were going to push from Upper City across into Spaceport, and probably in an effort to utilise this kind of mid-range and brawl that they had brought. But they got stalled almost where the Wolfhounds had got stalled from the drop before for 228, and they were forced to kind of trade uphill, up the Spaceport, and they were really up against it from that position. They lost a Piranha who had tried to sneak around, do some kind of sneak stuff in the back line, but that went down pretty quick. They also lost an Orion 2C, which was pretty brawly, but just couldn't get close enough to use the brawl. And once those mechs had gone down, 228 basically just called the push, and in they went. So like the first River City drop, this was, again, an example of a team just putting themselves at a disadvantage with some pretty bad positioning, considering what deck they had brought with them. So, you know, you've obviously got to optimize your builds, optimize your strats with your builds, and then make sure your positioning complements what it is you're trying to do with your strats and with your builds. So Whiskey Tango Fox was a power in this one, 700 odd damage. Although Demento Graven stole most of his kills by the look. A very good damage spread across 228 here, so I think that was probably reflective of the better positioning. They just had the opportunity to all fire on the Aces Wild mechs, whilst Aces Wild couldn't do that in reverse. So all in all, this was a very, very good match in Div D, and an excellent win to Aces Wild, who probably were the stronger team in this one, although the margin was very, very small. So it did play out like a top-of-the-table clash, and I think it'll probably go a long way to deciding who wins that division. Though, of course, 79th Raptor might have something to say on that one. But, yeah, great to have these games streamed. Great to be able to follow some of the Div D action. And, again, that one did live up to the hype. So let's finish by looking at some of the matches that are scheduled for round 4, and just to note that there were quite a few round 3 matches that ended up getting rescheduled. So what you will see and what we'll talk about will include some of the round 3 matches, and not all of the round 4 matches have been scheduled at this point in time. So apologies in advance that I might miss some of the matches. Be sure to go to the comp website so that you can check out when your favourite team is playing, so that you don't miss any of the action. So round 4 brings us the first of the new maps, Forest Colony Classic, this time in round 1. And this one's going to be pretty interesting. Round 2 and round 3 are HPG, and then we go into the map ban as well. So the first of the new / old maps is going to be really exciting, I guess, maybe. The map does look to be really one-side bias, and from Team 2 there's just crazy sight lines over almost the entirety of the map, and it is pretty small, so it'll be really interesting to see what kind of strats we see from Team 1 for those that drop as Team 1, and see how they counter kind of that automatic disadvantage by the other team having so much sight and ability to control the map. HPG's always good in my experience, in my limited experience of comp, and mid-range laser bomb is pretty common, I think, on this one. Teams will often race for the ramps, and with the coolness of the map, there's a real opportunity to take advantage of some pretty decent laser builds. But HPG, it is a map, I guess, that you can actually try different strats, and whilst this one is domination, there are those levels on HPG. There is the top and there is the basement. So we may see a little bit more tactical approach to domination from teams in this one, particularly in the higher divisions. It might not be the rush to the middle and brawl that we've seen in Polar and in Caustic thus far, and certainly in Mining as well. So yeah, it may be a little bit more drawn out, but I'm looking forward to seeing how HPG plays. As for the map ban, I think we'll probably see same. I think we'll see cap and control and map control taking up the traditional trading positions that you would on Alpine or on River or on Rubelite. Right, so a few round 3 games, as I mentioned, to play out. Smoke Eaters 505th and Cameron Highlanders Sons of Thunder. Diamond Shark 39th Strike Cluster and 79th Raptor Talon Cluster have a cluster battle from round 3 to play out as well. So there's a couple of round 3 matches that you may see in round 4. Getting on to the round 4 matches, we have a Russian Jade Falcon Irie and 31st Hussar in an EU Div B battle. One team is 2-1, Irie are 2-1, and Hussar are 1-2. But Hussar are just coming off a very good win. And as I mentioned, EU Div B is really heating up. So I think this one will be close. Very much looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. We then do have Raptor Talon Cluster playing their second game in a very short period of time. This will be their round 4 game, and this time it is against Cameron's Highlanders Sons of Thunder. So I don't envision Raptor having too much of a problem. Cameron's Highlanders have struggled a little bit. They are yet to get a win, and we should see Raptor Talon come through pretty handily in that one. We go to a NA Div B battle between Potato Killers and Smoke Adders. This is a 2-1 team versus a 1-2 team. There is quite a difference in roster strength here, but Smoke Adders have shown a real fight. They are on the board with a win, and they will give Potato Killers some trouble. So it will be interesting to see how Potato Killers respond after they got pushed pretty hard by the answer. So be looking forward to see how that match plays out. In NA Div C, we have Aces Wild up against Bears Brawlers. Now, that is a little bit of a bottom-of-the-table clash. Both teams are yet to get a win, so someone will be leaving that match happy because they'll get a win. But I would say Aces Wild probably the favourite in that one. But yeah, you just never know with Bears Brawlers. Dropship 4 are playing Diamond Shark Alpha Galaxy Command Cluster in a round 3 game. Now, this does pose a little bit of an interesting question. Dropship 4 have been very strong thus far, but they are almost playing around behind everyone else. So there does pose the question as to whether they are getting any advantage by seeing what strats and what has played out both in their own division and in the other divisions as well. So this one will be close. These teams are both very good, but Dropship 4 probably got the edge. They have a couple of 99% Jarl's List pilots in Soviet Armada and Axe 64, so it does only take a couple of extremely high level pilots like that, they're in the 99th percentile according to Jarl's, to make a team really strong, and then everyone can kind of fit in around that. So I would favour Dropship 4 in this one, but by no means am I certainty DSAG have got some very, very good pilots themselves. So hopefully this is a very, very good match. And as I said, it may come down to strats. Remember, those guys will be playing on Tourmaline and Caustic. So from one good match to another, we then go to NA Div B and a top-of-the-table clash between MS Crab People and White Knight. Now, this is a potential game of the round. Don't get me wrong. If this one is streamed, you definitely want to tune in for this one. If MS can repeat the form that they brought to EMP, then they are going to give White Knight Legion a real run for their money. White Knight Legion are looking very strong. They've got some very, very good pilots, as I've mentioned before, with Texan Scrublord and Brower. You know, a lot of the guys that are out of Majestic 12. But as I said, MS Crab People are just looking so good, so organised. Their strats are excellent, their timing's excellent. And yeah, they almost took some drops and almost took a match against EMP. So that kind of says enough. So this will be a very, very good one. And again, might be crucial into how that division plays out. If MS Crab People can get the win here, then it is a two-horse race, I think, who wins that division between them and WKL. To EU Div B, and another excellent game. Majestic go up against I Hate My Team. Both of these teams are 2-1. A surprising loss for Majestic last week. So, I mean, I talked them up and thought that they might just walk through that div, but it's turning out to be very, very different. So whether I Hate My Team can kind of repeat what Furia did last week, we'll have to see. But very interested to see how this one plays out and how it will make that division look as well. So we don't get to see as many EU games streamed, unfortunately. I wish we did, because there's obviously so much quality over that side of the Atlantic. But yeah, hopefully we can get our teeth in and get that one streamed. We then have a crossover match between EMP and the Answer. Now, EMP did get pushed last week by Crab People, but probably not going to be the case this week. EMP are very strong, and I think it'll be a very, very uphill battle for the Answer to take any kills, let alone any drops off EMP. Diamond Shark Alpha Galaxy Command Cluster play the second game of the round, effectively, against Cameron's Highlanders Claymores. This will be a very, very good battle in Div C as well. You know, another super game against two of the potentially top teams in that div. I mean, DSAG will be coming off that game with D4, so it'll be interesting to see how that influences this game. I mean, they're probably not going to have as much time to strategize or plan for that second game. And remember, we're talking about a map that has only just been kind of recirculated. So strats and those kind of things, that, you know, it won't be settling into familiar patterns. That's going to be an interesting one to see how DSAG go and whether there's any influence from playing those games together. We get a run back in EU Div A between RJF and PHL. A little weird, obviously, but you know, it's the size of the division there. But again, this should be another fantastic game. They've had the chance to lock horns, and PHL did come up with the win. Both of these teams are at the bottom of that division, so they're kind of battling out for that second place. You know, that bottom of the division. Be interesting to see whether Russian Jade Falcon can get the win this time. Again, have to put this in perspective. We are talking about two very, very, very good teams. So don't look at the records or anything like that. This is two good teams, and it'll be a very good match. And the last one here that I know is scheduled between Clan Crossfire and Death from Above in NA Div B. This is my unit, and unfortunately, I think we'll be facing another uphill battle against a very strong unit in that division. Death from Above have been playing pretty well despite their kind of 1-2 record and losing last week. I think they will be very, very hungry for a win, and that will put us Australasians right in the crosshairs. But we will be preparing well and hopefully be looking to represent ourselves as well as we can, and hopefully we can push Death from Above and maybe even get the win. Would think Death from Above probably got the advantage in this one. But as mentioned, you know, we're plucky, we're Kiwis and Aussies, so yeah, we'll be in for the battle, and hopefully we can go well. So again, apologies that there might be a few games there that I have missed that haven't been scheduled yet, and I haven't mentioned them because I don't know whether they will get scheduled in this round. But of course, do check out the website to see whether your favourite team is playing. And as always, be sure to tune into as much action as you can so that you are supporting this player-run competition. Check out the MWO Comp Discord and be sure to subscribe to the MWO Comp YouTube channel. That is up and over 100 subscribers now, so thank you listeners for going and subscribing. They can get their custom URL now once a little bit of time has passed. And of course, the live action is on Twitch, the MWO League and MWO League 2 channels. I think they might even be introducing an MWO League 3, but make sure you check out all of those channels and do hit that box so that you are getting notifications and you aren't missing out on any of the action. Remember, you can go to the tournament website, www.tournament, Tournament, and search for Martial Olympiad Reborn, and a lot of the information around standings and schedule and all that on there as well. I do, once again, as always, want to give a big thank you to the shoutcasters that continue to give up their time and energy and cast these matches. Cop a lot of grief from chat, from people like myself, giving them grief, but it's all in good fun, and we certainly do appreciate what they do there to bring those games to life and allow us to tune in. And as always, a big thank you to the MWO Comp admins, the likes of Just Call Me Ash, Krasnopeski, Live, 1991. The work you do is huge and the community appreciates the efforts that you are putting in. And of course, do stay subscribed to Incoming Missile Podcast and be sure to stay up to date on all of the MWO Comp action via this audio feed. We will continue to provide these weekly updates as the tournament progresses. We are about halfway through, so another 3 or 4 weeks to go. It's been great so far, and long may it continue. Alright guys, enough from me. I'll catch you next week.
Now you're weeping.